Yeah, right.
Well, welcome to Freethinker Radio.
All right, thanks, Derrick. I'm glad to be here, and I thank KPFT and all our supporters for the long-term support and the opportunity to continue to bring you the news, music, and events that you've come to expect from us over the last, 8 years or so?
Just about that, yeah. We're going to go ahead and get started here. Today we got a special show. We got a lot of guests. We've got probably 2 call-ins. We got 2 in-studio guests.
Special.
Every show is special. You're right about that.
Okay. Sorry. I'm just opinionated.
And everybody who calls in is special, too, because we want to make sure that we get call-ins. This is our second show on the FM side. Last week we had 2 call-ins, and I think we dropped a couple of them.
And thank you if you were listening last time, and if you did happen to call last time, thank you for joining the dialogue. And if you didn't and you were itching to, you can call in at 713-526-5738. We'd love for you to join us here at the Tower of Power, 90.1 FM. Been here in Montrose 4 decades plus, and just want you to join us.
Yeah, we got a lot going on today. So one thing I want to remind you guys, since we are a new show here, is we're very interactive. So if you're on social media, you want to follow us on Facebook at Freethinker Radio or at thehoustonfreethinkers.com. We have a forum there where we post all of the articles and just the topics and the things that we're covering, the music as well. And if you want to keep up with that, see what song we're playing, find out more about our guests, or find out more about the stories we cover, you're going to want to stay tuned to thehoustonfreethinkers.com or Freethinker Radio on Facebook every week. And another reminder, we have our follow-up show. You get us today, right as you start your weekend. Then Monday, when you're going back to work, we'll be on the HD2 side from 4 to 6 p.m. And, yeah. A little bit
of an extended show every Monday, kick off the week with all the news you can use, and catch up from the weekend. And I actually
go ahead and figure it out.
I've got them.
Are they
I
in
think
there?
we're gonna
we're gonna test this out
now. Can they hear us?
Give us a check over there, guys.
All right, they hear us.
They can hear us.
This is sometimes what happens in live.
We have
radio.
2 in-studio guests.
Exploratory committee, but
we don't want those
turn off
guys.
Tom Hartman.
Yes, Tom Hartman not here.
All right, so we have Jason Bassler and Matt Savoy, Matt Gorst in the house, and we're working the board now. It's the first time we have guests in the other room across from us, so it kind of feels like I'm in a spaceship and Jason's in the other side, like the other part of the spaceship.
From the bridge.
Can we hear them? Are they coming through?
No, we just see hand signals. That's how
Let's
bad
try
it
those
is.
2, maybe.
Those are the Tom Hartman ones, and these say
Okay.
CDs, so we only have so many choices. Studio, boom. Oh, wow, lights.
Uh-oh.
Yes,
Something
yes.
happened.
Check.
Oh,
There
I
we
hear
go.
them. There we go. That's like magic. Look at that.
Jason.
Studio magic.
Do we have Matt, too?
There we go.
Yep, awesome.
Red
Okay,
light.
cool. All right, we're good. Lights are on. Welcome to the show. Yeah, this is Freethinker Radio, and we have our guests for the next hour, Jason Bassler, Matt Savoy of the Free Thought Project, freethoughtproject.com. Thank you guys for joining us. How y'all doing?
Great, man. Thanks for having us here.
Yeah, happy to be in Houston.
Yeah, and this is broadcasting all across Houston on 90.1 KPFT Community Radio, of course, down in Galveston. What's the Galveston dial, Micah?
89.5 in Galveston, 89.7 up in Livingston, all over the area.
Pretty much anywhere in the southeast, like, Texas coast, you're hearing us.
Tower of Power.
So we're excited about that. And we're going to be talking with the Free Thought Project guys who, if you've never been to their website, well, I'll let you guys go ahead and give the audience a little breakdown about how you guys started Free Thought and what it really is. And we're going to get into some news with you guys as well. We'll get into some events. But tell us a little bit about Free Thought first.
Sure. Jason and I met when we worked for a different company whose name we won't say right now. But they borderline reported on things that were on the fringe that were unprovable and pretty silly. But that's how we got our foothold in the door. And then so we decided that there was a market void for not so much conspiracy realm, but just there was enough stuff out in the open that needed to be reported on that was provable and we could show. So we just started attacking that and started showing that to the world, and it blew up rather quickly. Like within just a few months, we were really big in Alexa rankings. We were like 500 largest website in the country, and then like 1,000th in the world. And so there was obviously a void for this non-partisan, non-super conspiracy reporting, and a lot of it had to deal with the police brutality epidemic that we were witnessing at the time, and we currently are still witnessing.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that a big part of it was around the police brutality aspect and documenting, and it still continues to be to this day, police violence stories. That's a big chunk of what Free Thought Project does, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our sister page and organization, the Police, that was started in 2012. That was kind of the catalyst. We were also coordinating, working with Cop Block around that time, but that's always been a focus of both of ours and something we feel is really important to cover. I mean, any type of accountability when it comes to government, whether it be police or the actual state, that's more or less our bread and butter.
Awesome. All right, guys. They're going to be hanging out with us today, so if you have any questions for Jason or Matt about their website, feel free to call in 713-526-5738. We're going to get into some local events. I know, Micah, you had a couple you wanted to mention, and then we'll talk about why the guys are here this weekend.
For sure. And, well, that's one of the events. Why don't you take it away from me?
I know you had another
joking.
event,
I was just joking, for sure.
What other events do we got? There's got to be something going on.
We got, we always, not just talking about ways that you can get involved, but giving you opportunities to, do something different. So the Heights Epicurean Market, we haven't mentioned that over here, and that's coming up January 19th over right there on Heights Boulevard. So kind of an alternative economics situation where you can go out and, maybe find out what's going on in your community, some hyper-local grown produce, non-GMO, all good stuff.
Is it too late to get on the market?
You'd have to contact them. I don't know. I'm just talking about the event. Why are you asking me these things? Anyway.
Well, if people are interested and they want to get involved, should they
It's
reach
not
out?
too late because the market's always recurring. They were first Saturdays. They're moving to, I think, third or something. But, you can plug in. They've got a heightsepicurean.com. Out there where you can get into more about what they're having. Sometimes they'll have it designed kind of towards children. I think they've had events where they were even focused on pets before because they have so much space there. They can set one whole side of it just to whatever it's focused on. So it's a nice thing. It's right there on the boulevard. There's live music. There's like I said, there's food for sure. Artisans, bakers, chemical-free farming. What about that, Derrick?
Food. I just heard food, and that's where I'm there. There usually is good food too, and there's independent people. I like to go to all the markets in Houston because if the benefit of being this giant city is that every week there's all kinds of different artisan markets, farmers markets, like maker space type things. And if you're trying to find something for yourself or a friend or just support somebody other than Target or Walmart, there's lots of opportunity.
Something I never combined it with before is also if you think there's a lot of division going on in the country and stuff, here's a way of getting out in a safe environment and just seeing, what's going on around you. Go out on a nice day, see that people are making these things. This is positive because even if you don't care about making candles or woodworking or growing your own food, these people, they came up with that, and you might see something else. And we got a caller, and I know, Derrick, I'm
just not good at this. I believe that's...
I can't stand this. How can you say I'm just not
Micah
good at this?
Micah has to answer the phone calls because usually I hang up on people, and I think this is Eleanor, who is going to be one of the journalists here in Houston this weekend to participate in the United for Common Ground Summit, which we were just about to get to, so I guess this is a good time since we're bringing on Eleanor. And Micah's telling her, hey, if I hang up, then call back, because we're sometimes good at hanging up on people. But I think we've got success so far.
This is live radio. This is what happens. Are you there, Eleanor?
Yes, I am.
Ooh, we did it, yes.
All right, Eleanor Goldfield, welcome to Freethinker Radio here in Houston, Texas. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we just wanted to check in with you. We're here in the studio with Jason and Matt of Free Thought Project, and we were just getting started. We were talking about local events. We were just getting ready to start talking about the United for Common Ground Summit. But briefly, I want you to go ahead and share with our audience a bit about your work and what you do exactly, and then we'll talk about what's going on this weekend.
Cool, yeah. So I'm a creative activist and a journalist. I have a show that's syndicated on Free Speech TV called Act Out. It airs every week. It's also in podcast form, and I also have a podcast with Lee Camp called Common Censored, and basically the concept behind that and my weekly show is to cover the stories that are censored by not only corporate media, but of course corporate social media like Facebook and Twitter, and also to cover the creative resistance that folks are engaging in across the country and across the world.
Yeah, awesome. And I definitely have enjoyed watching your videos over the years and just seeing the types of content that you put out. And as you said, you're connected with Lee Camp and other activists, and I saw you recently in D.C. at the Women's March on the Pentagon. So you do a lot of different types of activism. And this weekend in Houston, myself and Jason and other activists, we've kind of coordinated to put together this, what we're calling the United for Common Ground Summit, which is a private event, but it's also something we want the public to know about because this is a lot of different activists and journalists from the digital journalists and people out there gathering information to those who are organizing in the streets and in their communities who are facing censorship via social media, as well as just difficulties being able to connect and to promote the ideas and the concerns we have. So we're coming together to try to brainstorm on that. Why do you think this is important, and why did you feel necessary for you to be involved?
Well, I think it's a very important time right now, and I'm so glad that you guys did all the impressive footwork to bring this all together, because progressive and radical and alternative voices in general are being smashed by, like I said, not just corporate media, which is, old hat, but corporate social media in a collaboration with the U.S. government to suppress any dissenting voices. So this is an incredibly important time. I mean, I don't know any journalist or even any organization for that matter, any sort of resistance organization that hasn't felt the crackdown on their social media posts and getting the word out. I mean, I can't count the number of times that somebody's walked up to me and said, "Wow, are you still doing your show? I never see you on Facebook." And so this is something that is happening across the board to folks that are really trying to break through the mainstream and corporatized propaganda machine. And so I think it's really important that we all come together, because I think just a couple of journalists here and there can't break through that machine, but I think coming together, all of us, and figuring out a coordinated way to break through that and lift each other's voices up and pedestal each other's work, I think that's incredibly important, and that's really the only way that we can break through that machine.
And what would you say to those who are listening who, maybe some of the names of the different outlets that are going to be involved in different individuals, they might recognize them, they might not, but surely they've come across the content. These type of people who they're looking for alternative information that they're not going to find in the corporate media and on the TVs for the most part, who are listening to this. What can they do to help those of us who are on the other side, actually creating the content and trying to do the journalism and the activism? How can the people at home support?
I think media literacy is key, and that means being a proactive viewer and reader and listener. It means going to the places and going to the people that your preferred outlet talks about, signing up for newsletters, because that's one of the few ways that hasn't been directly censored yet that I know of, and being that informed reader and consumer of news. We can't just accept that what Facebook shows us is valid, because, as we know, it's absolutely not. In terms of filter bubbling and in terms of algorithms, we know that that's not true. So I'd say to folks listening, and this goes for me too as a journalist, we have to be really informed readers and consumers of the news, and recognize that the real fake news out there is coming from the top, not from the grassroots.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Eleanor Goldfield. Where can everybody find your work at?
You can find out more about me by going to artkillingapathy.com, and that has all of my projects linked there, including my show, Act Out. Awesome.
Thank you, Eleanor. We'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks so much, guys.
That was pretty cool. Good information.
Art Killing Apathy. Yeah, she does, I don't know if you guys have ever heard her before, seen her stuff. She does, spoken word with some of her reporting, and it's pretty cool. So
I liked the way she said corporate social media. You know what I mean? And made that distinction, because before, obviously, she made that distinction, so it's been made already and it's clear. But yeah, I think a lot of us, we complain about how our social media feed's been trimmed down, our reach has all, been diminished. Also, how they've done those things to manipulate people's emotions, stuff like that. And then we have the Cambridge Analytica, and all of us know this, but I think often we tend to forget that this stuff is linked in the way that that distinction shows how this one machine, the various ones, Twitter, Facebook, etc., social medias are corporate social media. They're not our social media, but there is social media actually even on HoustonFreethinkers.com, isn't there?
Yeah, even at the HoustonFreethinkers.com you can join and sign up for free and comment to us. And there are other social media alternatives. We're going to get into some of that once we talk with some more with Matt and Jason after this song. Who are we listening to? What are we checking out?
A little bit of Such Marvelous Monsters, provided everything works here, for sure.
Well, let's see if this works. Such Marvelous Monsters, Keep Talking, is that what it's called? Oh that
yeah,
sounds like it works.
It works.
All right,
Sounds
you're listening
good.
to Freethinker Radio, 90.1 KPFT. Whoa.
All right, that was pretty good stuff, man.
That was Such Marvelous Monsters. Keep Talking. They're from Houston, of course, right?
They are from Houston. That whole album's really good. They've got some non-FCC compliant words up in there for you to hear, and so we can't play them, but we're forced to see them in order to bring you the good news. And I don't know if that my head and my mind and my eyes will ever be the same again, but that's what we endure here at Freethinker Radio.
You know the crazy thing, and I hope that the FCC doesn't mind me saying this, but
it depends. If it's 7 of those words, they'll mind.
No, but the crazy thing about the words that we can't say is that the words we can say, some of them are probably more offensive to some people, but technically, legally, we wouldn't get fined for saying them on air.
Yeah. Like government.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, that just offended me a little bit. But yeah, so it's interesting how that works. Oh, I think we got a caller, Micah.
I'm not surprised after that comment.
Oh gosh, what did we do? Well, we're going to continue our conversation while Micah deals with this caller and see what they have to say. We're here in the studio with the two founders of the Free Thought Project, the freethoughtproject.com, Jason Bassler and Matt Savoy. So tell everybody a little bit more now. We've established who you are, and we've heard from Eleanor a little bit about what our plans are this weekend. We have this United for Common Ground Summit, bringing people together to discuss ideas for overcoming censorship and moving forward. Tell the audience a little bit about the censorship that you guys have dealt with.
So our situation is a bit more unique. So on the same day, October 11th of 2018, we had both Facebook and Twitter coordinate to remove our pages and accounts, and that totaled about 6 million fans altogether. So as you could imagine, that was years of work accumulating those fans. And ever since then, we haven't heard back from either Twitter or Facebook. We tried to appeal those suspensions and deletions, unpublishing, and we just didn't even get a response.
And it's not even just that, the fans equal, like,
Too
okay,
big to respond.
you got a lot of likes, and so people like you, but the fans equal, traffic to the website, which pays writers and pays editors and helped Free Thought become one of, as you guys said earlier, one of the biggest reaching independent outlets in the United States.
Don't you think that's part of the problem to them, though? That one, it's taking traffic away from the Facebook, right? And that's obviously competition. They want you to stay on that feed all day long if you can.
Did they? I know, Jason, we've talked about this before, but I want you to share this with the audience because to put it into the context of some of the audience who might not quite get what we're discussing here, is that following the election of Donald Trump, when the fake news idea started to spread, a lot of the outlets that I've worked with, and that the outlet we're talking to right now, the Free Thought Project, were labeled as fake news or Russian propaganda in several different lists, and immediately you start seeing advertising suffering, and then algorithms start censoring, and before you know it, all funding is gone. And as of this summer, the outlets can no longer pay writers, including the Free Thought Project. I mean, that's really what we're dealing with here, right, guys?
Correct. And none of us have ever been to Russia, just to clarify.
I think we got a caller here that has some questions for you guys.
Hey, caller, are you still there?
I'm here.
Oh, good. I didn't hang up on you. I was afraid I may have done that. So you called and said that you had some questions for our guests today, and maybe you want to introduce yourself or go by a pseudonym or something?
Pseudonym.
Cool. What's your pseudonym?
MOD.
Oh,
yeah, it's MOD again. He's going to be one of our regular callers. Cool.
Yeah, if y'all allow it. So y'all mentioned Cambridge Analytica, right?
Yeah, lay it on us.
Okay, so you know who owns Cambridge Analytica?
I know that Steve Bannon was associated with it.
Yeah, he works within it. They create reality. They created Duck Dynasty. But Cambridge Analytica is actually owned by Robert Mercer.
Oh, yep.
And he answers to a higher call Sheldon Elderson. He's a very wealthy Vegas mongrel.
Yep.
Okay. So Cambridge Analytica was spun up. It was just for, big data collecting, right?
Certainly.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so when Cruz and Bubble Bath Rubio saw grace in the 2016 GOP in July, Elderson tapped over to Mercer and said, hey, we need to go over here. And that was Trump. And so they basically embedded in Facebook, right? And did you hear about the charges of Facebook using them? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, I think that what you're pointing at here, I'm just going to try to move this along a little, brother, if you don't mind. Because, what he's getting at here, for those who haven't looked into this, for the Mercer family, one of the biggest donators to Trump, and then Sheldon Adelson, I think is his last name, if I'm saying Ellison, yeah, he's also very closely tied with Israel and other nations, and they were heavily financially backing the Trump administration. Are you sitting here trying to tell us that Trump is not after the best interests of the people? He's not fighting the deep state for the good of the nation? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, he came up to the farm ranks. Not that he's not fighting for it, but he's the Idi Amin or Franco of Spain or Hugo or Castro of Cuba. He comes up to the ranks because he is from the swamp. He defrauded all his dad's money, right? And basically, he works at the behest. He doesn't go through Pappy Bush when he was alive. That's why the Bushes didn't like him. He goes straight to, was it Jared Kushner?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that mafia is called Chabad. Chabad. Chabad, Chabad. And that's a very high level. They've been around for a long time, actually. So he works on homage to them. And so I'll digress back to Sheldon because do y'all know about the United States cybersecurity knock out of Colorado Springs, Colorado?
I personally don't, brother, but we're probably going to have to leave it there. If you want to send us the information to our Facebook page or to, if you want to email it to, you can send it to, where's the easiest place?
They can send it. He can also message, like you said, the Facebook page, or he can email
Broze.
Yeah, I like Facebook.
Yeah, I know you don't. I figured you didn't use Facebook.
Names come back up on the rest of the show, and I'll mark it down. But just look up Unit 8200, and that's with Israel Mossad, and those guys served 6 years military, and the staff that are basically in that new knock, that cybersecurity knock, are all from that cybersecurity intelligence.
Hey,
so,
when you say knock, do you mean non-official undercover?
Do what, sir?
When you say knock, do you mean non-official undercover?
No, Network Operations Center.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. Well, we're gonna have to leave it there for now, brother.
Built, and that came from Ellison. He donated it, supposedly from private interest. But it's interesting how Mossad's Taliban, look it up, TALPIOT, run this nation and other countries' cybersecurity. RAD group. We'll talk another time.
All right, brother. Keep listening, man. We got another caller coming in, but thank you for everything you share. All right, so that was MOD, who, guys, that's one of our regular listeners. I want to get back to Jason and Matt. Well, thanks for sharing that information, first off. We do take your calls, and we have always got time for you guys at 713-526.
In fact, we have another caller
5738. Oh, there's another caller.
Yes,
let's check it out.
Hello, caller, are you still there?
Yes.
Oh, certainly. So how are you today?
Fine. Yeah, I'm Scott.
Hi, Scott.
Yeah, I have not had any problems with Facebook.
That's rare.
And, I've certainly not been in Facebook jail. There was one posting that they blocked 2 or 3 years ago, and I couldn't figure out why, but otherwise, no problems. But I do hear people say they were in Facebook jail, but I don't know just why, and they may not want to say exactly why.
Do you have, you say you haven't been directly affected by this, but do you yourself have issues with hearing about outlets, news outlets with millions of followers just being, taken off Facebook without any warning and without any sort of arbitration process?
You mean, okay, I was hearing on your program that group was taken off?
Yeah, our guests right here, Matt and Jason, they run the Free Thought Project, and they're an independent journalistic news outlet that were, back in October, among hundreds of Facebook pages and websites that were purged, removed from Facebook without warning.
And Twitter.
Within weeks of the election. And these are all outlets that specifically, they don't typically toe the line and just repeat what you hear on cable news. This is all, alternative independent media.
Well, let's see. I have something like 600 Facebook friends, and most of them are politically liberal. Some of them are a bit to the left of me. And they're pretty outspoken, and I hear plenty of criticism of Facebook on Facebook.
Well, it's not necessarily the individuals who are being banned from Facebook. It's groups like us, like the Free Thought Project, who had 6 million followers, who were making a massive dent in the establishment's armor.
And I want to say, just add to that, Matt, that it's been, and to the caller, for your awareness, that it's been outlets from across the political spectrum. You know, you may have, I think you say you have mostly liberal friends. Have you heard of the Jimmy Dore Show or the Jimmy Dore program?
No.
Jimmy Dore is a very popular progressive with a pretty big following on YouTube, and his podcast and show is broadcast, you know, all over in different outlets. You know, he's faced censorship of different kinds. People have been demonetized on YouTube, you know, when they come to rely on creating content and making a living off it and sharing information, sharing knowledge, and then, you know, these quote-unquote private companies, which are quasi-private at best, you know, then start to cooperate with, it seems like in cooperation with the government, or at least with institutions like the Atlantic Council, who are very closely tied to Western governments and militaries, basically silencing voices on Facebook. So it might not be something that you as an individual have been directly faced with, because it's really, you know, it's been surprising to me, I guess, because sometimes when we run in these bubbles, it's easy to realize people outside of our bubbles have no idea what's going on. And so I've talked to a lot of people who, like you, have said, oh, I never heard of this, I haven't experienced this, but that's why we're here talking about it today with our guests, and we appreciate your call.
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest problem I have is that colleagues don't take up suggestions of mine. I don't think they think outside the box. I try to get people interested in David Brock's books about the right-wing propaganda machine. Didn't hardly got any follow-up. Well, and that's not Facebook. That's my colleagues.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate your call.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to switch over. I think we got another call in, guys. The lines are blowing up with you guys here. We're talking with the Free Thought Project, Matt and Jason of the freethoughtproject.com, about, well, whatever you want, but we're talking about social media censorship, and we're talking about Facebook and how we can overcome that, and why journalists are coming here to Houston, Texas. We'll take this call, and we do want to play a call that we had with journalist Ford Fischer earlier today about why he's coming to Houston. Caller, are you with us?
Yes.
Who are we talking to?
RT.
How are you doing? What's on your mind?
America is a censored country, and I don't care how much they say it's not, it is. And I'm just not surprised at what Facebook or Twitter or Tumblr or I'm just not surprised, and I'm surprised that people are surprised that these things happen. And I don't know. To me, just the reality is if you live in America and you don't think things like this is going to happen, then then you're going to be in for a rude awakening every time you try to post something.
I certainly think that's true. I told you I shared some of your sentiment, and I talked to coming from I'm an underground industry individual who has to get the word out about music and such, and we face a similar difficulty, as well as sometimes activist type guy. So I do agree that we need to pull traffic to our own platforms, and that these other platforms aren't owned by us; they are censored. America is a very censored society, as you said. But I do think it's still important, because I think what happens when they come out and they say these things is the impact is expressed again. These ideas that people have inherently, even though we all know it's censored, I think people forget that. They hop on Facebook, and they think they're able to express everything. They think the whole world's there, their viewpoints, their friends' viewpoints, but they're really not. And you and I think everybody on the headphones, and probably a good number of people in the listening audience do know that we are somewhat censored, that these platforms are censored, but I do believe it still serves for these gentlemen to step up and say, here's the voice that we had managed to reach that they cut. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
there?
Absolutely. And on the contrary, on a good week, we were reaching up to 50 million people on just one page, so we were certainly doing some damage as far as, like Matt said, damaging the media and establishment narrative.
Right. We knew we were going to be censored. We predicted this years ago. We've been writing articles about this for years, but there's very few places that you can reach 50 million people in a week. So this was our outlet to be able to do that, to plant these seeds, to spread the ideas of freedom and liberty.
Use their tools against them, essentially.
Correct.
Well, I think Facebook got their money off y'all and said, okay, that was enough.
Facebook got no money from us. I mean, very little money from us.
We're going to leave it there, caller, but thank you for calling in. We appreciate that, man. And you're right. We are dealing with censorship. It's the reality, but we hope you'll tune in every Friday, because this is where we're going to keep trying to wake people up to that, man. So thank you for calling in.
All right, I'll try.
All right, we're going to hear real quick now. We're going to continue the conversation. This is a call I did earlier today with Fischer, journalist Ford Fischer, about why he's coming to Houston. Thinker Radio on 90.1 KPFT. We're continuing our discussion on this weekend's United for Common Ground Summit, talking to journalists and activists about why they felt this was important. And on the line right now, we have a good friend of mine, Ford Fischer, with news to share. How are you doing, Ford?
Hey, I'm doing quite well.
So let's go ahead and get right into it and tell everybody a little bit about what is News to Share and what's your background as a journalist.
Yeah, so News to Share is an outlet that I co-founded a few years ago, back when I was in college, and have basically turned it into my full-time gig now. The premise of it basically is that I'm kind of creating an alternative to the way that mainstream media presents stories, where, you know, if you watch CNN or Fox or whatever, you have situations that are cut down into 2.5-minute or 90-second packages, right? And people basically are told, you know, what to think, right? They show a little bit of a thing, and then they have some talking heads telling you what to think about it or arguing about what to think about it. Instead, my outlet is kind of about live streaming situations beginning to end, so you can see the entire thing that happened with very minimal sort of commentary. And then I do kind of raw footage packages afterwards that, again, are void of any of my commentary. It just shows the thing that happens, and people can refer back to the live stream to see the context of everything that was said. So it's kind of about transparency in media and creating an alternative to what I see as sort of a deceptive format in the mainstream media.
We're talking with Ford Fischer, co-founder of News to Share, and it's newstoshare.com, correct?
Yeah, it's share.
News2share.com. And also, Ford didn't mention, but his work is regularly featured in, you know, mainstream media as well as movies and documentaries and other productions because of, as he just mentioned, that he gathers a lot of raw footage and lets the viewer decide. And so a lot of his footage will get picked up by other outlets. What caused you to want to come to Houston this weekend, Ford? Everybody's coming with different motivations and different kind of angles and concerns. What is your main reason for coming to Houston?
Well, I think the problem is that the mainstream media kind of has so much money and power, and it's clearly rather connected to the social media, which is very much how this stuff is shared. So my work is primarily on YouTube, where I put these raw footage reels, and Facebook, where I put that, as well as the live streams, and Twitter as well. And YouTube for the last few years has declined from what used to be, honestly, a very revolutionary kind of democratic way of sharing media, is now giving huge preference to kind of this very narrow set of sort of center-left mainstream CNN, AP, whatever, right? There are certain YouTube news channels that seem to be in the clear, and anything that doesn't match that exact narrative is getting demonetized. A lot of my videos are automatically demonetized without any human looking at them. Many of them are considered to be automatically 18+, which basically censors them out of existence. And then on the Facebook front, Facebook is marking some of my material as inappropriate, again, with the login type thing. Sometimes they've just completely faultily taken down live streams of mine. And then I know that people who are kind of in the fellow independent media, in some cases their entire channels have been completely erased from Facebook without much reason. And so when I see that it's being clamped down on other outlets, it could always be mine that's next. So I think, all these different indie media outlets have their own different approaches, right? So they don't have to have the same style that I do to confronting mainstream media or creating an alternative to it. But I think we're all kind of fighting the same fight by presenting things in a different way than the mainstream media has to offer. And given that we're all the subject of censorship because of that, I think we need to get together and figure out how to fight back.
Absolutely. One last question, Ford, before we let you go. What should the audience take away from this? Those who are listening, and some of our audience might not even be familiar with this whole situation, the Facebook purge and all the different censorship we've been dealing with prior to today. What should they take home from this?
Well, I mean, I think that in America, at least, it's sort of an American phenomenon that we're accustomed to having so many different choices, and people have their own different kinds of preferences. When you go to a grocery store, there's like 100 different types of cereal you can pick from. But when it comes to the media, all of the mainstream media or the so-called kind of trusted cable news or whatever is owned by 6 different corporations, and independent media represents a threat to that system, to the kind of monopoly that these few different corporations have over what you think. But I think that for the actual consumer of news, for the person who's trying to learn about the world around them and trying to think about it, I think that that's basically a good thing. And so when the mainstream media sort of threatens to clamp down on that, using Twitter or Facebook or the state itself to censor, that's something we all need to work together to fight back against.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time, Ford. All right, so that was Ford Fischer with News to Share, one of the journalists joining us this weekend. You're listening to Freethinker Radio on 90.1 KPFT Houston, community-supported, commercial-free, corporate-free radio.
Alternative media, actually.
Where else could we talk about these topics? I don't think you're going to find that. I mean, I'm not going to name any other radio stations start a rivalry. But
yeah, I'm not going to name any others because you can't.
But
not here.
They're not good. I realized this the other day. Actually, the other day because I don't listen to radio that often, but I was in a car and I was just kind of filtering through, and I'm like, man, every station in Houston, it's like this is Houston's radio, country, rap, or different Spanish stations.
Yeah.
We got another caller. All right. Well, we're
going to complain because you left some stations out.
We're continuing our conversation with Jason Bassler and Matt Savoy of the Free Thought Project. We've been talking about social media censorship. We've been talking about the independent media's efforts to overcome that. And this weekend, tomorrow, all day, we will be in Houston's East End at the TBH Center, Latino Cultural Arts Center, for 8 hours, just putting our heads together, trying to brainstorm ideas for overcoming this censorship and how we can work together on this. And I'm extremely excited. How are you guys feeling about it?
Definitely excited. Looking forward to meeting everybody.
Yep. This is something that needed to happen a long time ago. Perhaps we could have averted some of the situation that we're currently in had we done this 2 years ago.
I agree. I mean, that's kind of the background on this is, this had been the ideas, the seeds for this were planted before Trump even became president, and just during that whole election season that many of us were like, wow, this is just insane, and people are just dissatisfied all over the country. And, before people were just clinging to Trump, we got to remember that there was a lot of people on the right, of course, who didn't want anything to do with Trump, just like a lot of people on the left didn't want anything to do with Hillary. And now we have the situation where people are just fighting hard to keep them, even though they don't really agree with their positions.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the design, right? To polarize and divide and make it only seem like there's only 2 options. So when people go to the polls and think they're making a difference, they're just voting for the lesser of 2 evils, which we see the inevitable result of that manifesting today.
It is, and it's manifesting in the form of, and I want to just kind of telegraph this a little bit to our listening audience, but next weekend, if you tune in, you tune in to Monday Freethinker Radio, and also tune in next Friday, we'll be playing an interview we did just a couple of days ago with Paul Craig Roberts, who's the former Assistant Treasury Secretary under the Reagan administration, and he's got a lot of good insight, a lot of important things to say, and in that interview, we kind of get a little heated with him, going back and forth about what role Trump is playing in all of this. And, obviously I'm not much of a Trump supporter, but it's interesting to say the least how even among the independent media, alternative media, the truth activists, or however you want to put it, there's a lot of division and people who go different ways. And so it's interesting to see, though. But overall, I think what we're fighting for is for people to have the ability to say what they have to say. And we need more personal responsibility. I think the caller earlier was kind of saying that. We need more personal responsibility as opposed to looking for the government or these fact-checking organizations to take care of us. We got a caller?
We have a caller.
We should have a caller. William, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Whoa, welcome, William.
Yeah, how are you? I haven't heard your show before, but I'm an avid KPFT listener and donor occasionally. Anyway, I have what Oprah said at the Golden Globe last year? She said, tell your story. Well, I've been blacklisted for 25 years. And you know what the one thing nobody can report and get any coverage on worldwide?
What's that?
Real organized crime and the United States government. I had someone about 30 years ago in Southern California that works for the federal government that had already been criminally prosecuted and convicted for what they did to me, not to mention what the VA did to me when I got here in Houston. I get veterans non-related benefits. I'm a disabled vet, but I was misdiagnosed on purpose. Anyway, The story I have is about 1.5 million to 3 million people in this country. About 30 years ago, got involved with the sex club and porno industry and stalking people that were vulnerable. I became vulnerable because of the Iran-Contra stuff where they were shipping all that cocaine into South L.A. The townhome I was renting was filled with nothing but rock cocaine idiots. I put all my stuff in storage, and I was bouncing around to these people I thought I knew from playing pool. I've been playing pool for over 55 years. I've hardly ever had a real job my entire life, which really pissed these buttheads off. Well, anyway, this one guy I knew from playing pool that went out of his way to let me know he was messing with me. He showed up at the end of the O.J. Simpson trial. The defense attorneys for O.J. were giving their final summation to the jury, and they said, something really peculiar has happened here that the media and the prosecution have chose to totally ignore.
Hey, William, we're probably going to have to wrap you up because we're getting short here on time, but you know what? I want to just...
Well, you guys got my number.
I got your number.
Your screener.
I got your number, and I'll reach out to you. It sounds like...
I'm a dinosaur. You have to just call me, and I live on the west side of Houston. Nobody's after me.
All right, we got you, man. We got you. You have a good one.
Well, it sounds like you got a story to tell, William, and we will be in touch with you. I definitely want to agree with that last caller when you said that organized crime is within the government. We'll talk to you soon, William, and I think we got another caller. We got a busy day with callers today. It must be Jason and Matt. Everybody wants to talk to them. We'll see if Mike can get them on there. We've been successful so far. There haven't been any hang-ups on anybody today, so that's been pretty good, right?
That has been pretty good. The last caller just had some comments, the one that we just let us go. He had some comments about the other caller, so that was good.
Callers commenting on other callers.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Before we get another call, I want to share a story that just came out in the last couple of days, and Matt and Jason, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And this is definitely, we could say, a sensitive topic, I guess, and one that, of course, we welcome calls with lots of different diverse thoughts and ideas on.
I have to take a break from these callers.
They're coming in fast today, but it's good though. So this is why, an hour really just barely cuts it for Freethinker Radio. That's why we have 2 hours on Mondays.
Oh, and on that point, if you have called on this show, we want to remind you, 713-526-5738 here on the FM side. We also would like to invite you to call us for a longer conversation at 713-526-5737 on our HD show.
I think it's 8737.
What?
All right. Either way, call in on
8737. Yeah, you're right.
Friday or Monday, either way. So I'm gonna get into this one, and we've got about 15 more minutes with you guys, maybe even less than that, really about 12 or so. And I want to hear everybody's thoughts. Micah, Jason, Matt. This is coming from Cheryl Atkinson, who some of you may know. She made headlines a couple years ago when she left CBS. She's an award-winning journalist and worked for most mainstream publications. Then she quit, left CBS, and she founded her own news organization, and she has her own show that I think it appears on some cable broadcast. It's called Full Measure with Cheryl Atkinson, and she put out a new report on Sunday just called The Vaccination Debate. Yep, we're talking vaccines, so love to hear different opinions and thoughts on this, but this is really interesting because, again, this whole story is sourced. It's an investigation looking into a doctor who's worked for the U.S. government, a scientist who's worked in various departments, specifically working with the vaccine court. Some of you listening might not even be aware that there's a federal vaccine court.
What's that?
It was established in 1988, and it basically Congress consults with Big Pharma, the pharmaceutical industry, and if a family gets a vaccine and their child is harmed, they can go appeal it and try to seek damages in this special vaccine court. But the vaccine court is not public. There's no records of it. It's very kind of secret. And the other thing about it, let's say a victim, the DOJ who's involved with the litigation process and this secret vaccine court finds that, okay, well, the child did get harmed. The family should be compensated in some way. It doesn't come from the pharmaceutical industries or the vaccine makers. It's actually coming from patient fees that have been factored into the vaccines that everybody's being given. So it's
and the taxpayer.
The taxpayer ultimately. So, even if you never knew about that, just start your research there. Federal Vaccine Court, if you hadn't heard about that.
VAERS is the name of the government agency.
Yeah, and so
VAERS.
this report is from, as I said, Full Measure, and it's talking about a Dr. Andrew Zimmerman who was involved with the case, litigating several cases of different children who were affected by vaccines and whose parents went to the vaccination court saying, hey, we know our family was harmed, we want to seek damages. And specifically a child named Yates Hazelhurt, who was born in 2000 and ended up getting autism. shortly after a vaccination. And Dr. Andrew Zimmerman, it was his testimony in that vaccine court that was used to basically deny Yates and these other victims any sort of claims in 2007. So the government said, oh no, according to our own and Dr. Andrew Zimmerman, there's no connection, right? But as recently as October 2018, Dr. Andrew Zimmerman, he went on record, and there's now a sealed affidavit which you can find online, and I will link to that for those who are interested, where he says specifically that he did find evidence in what he called a small subset of children that would lead to regressive conditions that, he said, this is his words specifically, quote, I explained that in a subset of children, vaccine-induced fever and immune stimulation did cause regressive brain disease with features of autism spectrum disorder. This is Dr. Andrew Zimmerman, a U.S. government scientist. And again, he said this. He told the DOJ lawyers working in the vaccine court this as far back as June 15, 2007. And he said that they panicked, and within a couple of days he was fired after that. And he declined to be interviewed for this report, which, again, I want to recommend everybody to check this out from Full Measure. It's just called The Vaccine Debate from Cheryl Atkinson. And he didn't want to be interviewed, but he did say, just read my affidavit. It says everything I have to say. And it's just a great report to see. But, I mean, even that, you would expect this to be in the major media, right? This is a great example of why we're talking to independent journalists from the Free Thought Project today, why we've heard from Eleanor Goldfield and from Ford Fischer, and why people are coming in for United for Common Ground, because there are so many topics that are bigger than what Trump's tweeting about.
Well, I got a couple of things, I haven't had much chance to talk about ideas here, but one thing, First Amendment, freedom of speech, whatever you want to call it, thinking about it, we've seen so many attacks on it recently. This here is another example of why, freedom of speech is important. And when you couple that with the whole idea that, checks and balances and an independent press and the role that they can play, even if they don't play that, we can support press that does. We can find press that is giving us a viewpoint. And I imagine if you're listening to KPFT, you've already at least tried to find, something a little bit different than the duopoly you're being served everywhere else. But I do think it's real important to talk about it from a free speech point of view, because all the speech is being quilled to some degree. And we had this Houston police officer, and I know this is, I'm not going to go too far in the story, but basically a substation was shut down, and because he went out there and said, look, it's going to take longer to get to crimes if this is shut down, he was fired. He was canned. And see, these are the type of ideas that we don't need limited. We need this speech to be able to get out there. And when it is limited, there's, there's a lot of people who may not like police, but I like this example because of the fact that everyone is ready to attack, free speech when it's things they don't want to hear. And in so doing, they're whittling away people's opportunity. They're turning their back on these things. They're damaging the arguments and not recognizing the value of, our right to free speech.
I think that's the problem with people who aren't principled and don't have principles, whether we're talking, just average person, politician, left, right, whatever, is that when it benefits their side, they're all for it, and whenever the other side's doing it, they're happy to critique them. There's no principles, there's no backbone, there's no consistency, and I think that gets to the bigger problem. Whether we're talking about fake news, and I've had people say that, well, there are a lot of fake news there, Derrick. Like, I like your guys' sites, but I can't tell the difference between yours and some of these other fake ones, or what's Russian propaganda.
Smart people.
And so it does, I think, create a situation. We've talked about this before, how you can't tell what's true anymore. What's up, what's down. People are backwards. People are worshiping war criminals, and then the good guys are being considered criminals. The whistleblowers are being targeted and prosecuted. So the world is up and down, and it's very difficult. But I think it really comes back to personal responsibility. Like, if people don't start being consistent, having some principles, and thinking for themselves, and taking more than a minute to just read a headline and then share it, but actually stopping and checking a few different sources. And that's what it takes. And if you don't I feel like if you don't have that time, then maybe you should take it upon yourself to not share things that you don't, you know what I mean? Like,
you brought up another thing, or at least that hinges on it. I'm sure we've all ran into these people, and we do think there's a lot of division in the country, right? I mean, we see it on the feeds between friends of ours and things like that. So I think when we're just seeing these headlines and they're entrenched in a camp or something, it enables people to jump up, and I think we know somebody like this, a crazy neighbor or something. It allows them to jump up and just take this position, hard line, treat people the way uncivilly, even in conversational tones, and feel entrenched. And it just perpetuates the divide, and they're not talking to anybody. They're talking to be right or to win or to get you to see their point rather than to talk about the issue.
Well, and I'm sure some people even hearing this might be offended just by us even airing the statements from a scientist because it conflicts with what they've been told in popular media and by popular health officials, right? They might even say, oh, I wish that wasn't online. I wish they couldn't broadcast, or I wish that couldn't be posted online. But
don't you feel like we lose science?
That's a part of the problem.
If those people do get their way, we lose science. We lose the ability to do science. If you can't
ask questions, let's bring in Matt and Jason on this. You guys have shared all kinds of topics. You guys faced the censorship themselves. I know at one point Facebook's fact checkers, Snopes and AP, actually found you guys saying that that one of your headlines was false, and then later they came back and actually said they had made a mistake, right?
They said they made a mistake.
That happened 4 different times over the course of a year and a half, and
the fact checkers were wrong.
Yeah, well, we actually had to contact them, which was quite a process in itself, just to try to get a hold of them. Facebook actually makes it so you have to reach out to the actual fact checker themselves and try to appeal through them, which they already have a preconceived bias, right? Let's be honest. So once we actually did provide them the context to actually look at the information and try to examine it from our perspective, they actually admitted that they were wrong, and they ended up recanting their previous statements of it being fake news.
We've never been fact checked or deemed untrue on anything that we've ever reported on vaccines. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to get at. Is I know you guys have talked about vaccines before, and that's probably one of the areas they've attacked you the most.
Well, no, actually not. We're not the people. We're not out there making any claims about any vaccines. None of us are doctors. We have political science. We have biologists on the. They would have all worked for the Free Thought Project, but no one's a doctor and no one's a scientist who's done any of these studies. So we've only reported on evidence that has been shown out there. Like one of our most controversial articles of all times was the one about Dr. William Thompson, the CDC whistleblower. Who he wasn't even a whistleblower. He was kind of recorded in a back room somewhere, and that he was saying that he regretted destroying evidence that the MMR vaccine would actually raise the level of autism risk in African American children up to 36 months. And so that's a huge deal. But when you put that out there and say that and you tell that to people, then they're like, oh, that's lies, that's bull, but it's not. It's actual, it's true, it happened. It's admitted, and things like this. So Snopes can't say that we lied and made that up, right? They only can say that they can look at these other things that we've said and try to put that out there as being fake. But as Jason said, that we've gone back and proved that they're wrong every single time. So
guys, we got about a minute and a half
I think that's
left.
an important point that he brought up, though, because they had some information outside, because your journalist isn't an expert at chemtrails and vaccines and economics and all these things to know what, empirical questions like that. So they get something that someone said and they're reporting that because this is the credentialed person, and we should be able to hear that, right? And so obviously they can't prove that wrong, but they want to shut up what has been said, and that's that's the problem.
Or you can't even share a report. Guys, we got about a minute left. Matt and Jason, I want you guys to share anything else, any final closing thoughts you'd like with the audience. Again, thank you for joining us and making the effort to come out here to be in Houston, and I'm sure people in Houston appreciate knowing that this is going on in their backyard.
Thank you, man. Yeah, well, we're called the Free Thought Project for a reason, right? Like, there needs to be a place on the internet where people could discuss these ideas and have a platform to discuss them, to educate themselves and actually come up with educated opinions on this. So whenever a fact checker, does specifically target in on something like vaccines, that's just limiting the ability to have a conversation about this. And I think, if anything, that's what social media should be about, not taking pictures of our food or talking about sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us, and that's what we have Freethinker Radio for, but that's what we're here for, to talk about all kinds of topics. Thank you to all of our callers, and it's been another fun show. We'll be here next Friday from 3 to 4, and we'll be here on Monday from 4 to 6 on the HD2 side. Thank you guys for listening.
For sure, and I think the word social media has been brought up quite a few times, and I think what we're realizing is it's not so social.
Thanks for listening, guys. We're going to close out now. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for calling. We love you.
Peace.